A foolish woman is one who constantly prioritizes instant gratification over long-term growth, choosing fleeting pleasures over meaningful progress. She is trapped in a cycle where she seeks immediate rewards rather than investing in something that will elevate her life in the long run. This mindset often leads to poor decision-making, financial instability, emotional turmoil, and an overall stagnant life. Instead of focusing on building a strong foundation for her future, she indulges in temporary comforts that bring her no real value. This kind of woman often falls into the trap of short-term pleasure because it gives her a sense of escape. She might spend hours scrolling through social media, envying the lives of others, rather than using that time to improve herself. She indulges in impulsive shopping, spending money on unnecessary things that give her momentary happiness but leave her financially drained. She seeks validation through superficial means, investing more in her looks than in her character or intelligence. While self-care is important, she takes it to an extreme, using it as a way to distract herself from her deeper problems instead of addressing them. She avoids challenges because they require effort and patience, two things she has not developed. Instead of putting in the hard work to gain financial independence, she chooses the easy route, depending on others to take care of her needs. She jumps from one failed relationship to another, hoping to be saved instead of building a life where she doesn't need rescuing. This mindset keeps her in a position of weakness, always at the mercy of others, never in control of her own destiny. A foolish woman lacks the discipline to say no to things that do not serve her future. She knows she should be focusing on her education, career, or personal growth, but the temptation of momentary pleasures is too strong. She wastes time on toxic friendships, pointless gossip, and meaningless drama, rather than surrounding herself with people who challenge her to become better. She prefers the company of those who encourage her bad habits because they make her feel comfortable, even though they are dragging her down. She cannot stand being alone because it forces her to confront her reality. So she fills her life with distractions that keep her from looking inward. She seeks out entertainment instead of enlightenment, preferring reality TV over reading a book, watching endless movies over investing in her skills, and spending hours partying instead of working towards a goal. She convinces herself that she is enjoying life, but deep down, she knows she is only avoiding her responsibilities. She does not realize that true joy comes from progress, from accomplishing something meaningful, from becoming someone she can respect. But because growth takes time, she gives up before she even starts, choosing the path of least resistance every time. Her relationships are often a reflection of this mindset. She falls for men who offer her excitement instead of stability, men who feed her illusions instead of challenging her to be better. She finds herself in situations where she is being used, manipulated, or taken advantage of. But she stays because she confuses attention with love. She does not realize that a strong woman is not desperate for validation and that true love is built on respect, not on momentary attraction. Instead of choosing a partner who values her mind and character, she is drawn to men who appeal to her emotions in the moment. And then she wonders why these relationships never last. A foolish woman refuses to take responsibility for her actions. Instead of acknowledging that she is the reason her life is stagnant, she blames others, the world, or circumstances beyond her control. She complains about not having opportunities, but never creates them. She resents successful women, but refuses to do what they have done to achieve success. She envies those who have discipline, confidence, and independence, but she is unwilling to put in the work to develop those qualities herself. Instead, she makes excuses, convincing herself that she is a victim of life rather than the creator of her own destiny. Because of this, she remains stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. She watches the years pass by, wondering why nothing ever changes for her. She waits for a miracle instead of becoming the miracle. She hopes for a better future without taking any steps to build it. She talks about dreams, but never acts on them. She spends more time wishing than working, She surrounds herself with distractions instead of focusing on growth. And when reality finally catches up to her, she is filled with regret, realizing that she has wasted years chasing things that never truly mattered. She's addicted to comfort, fearing anything that requires effort, patience, or sacrifice. She is afraid of pain, so she avoids any situation that forces her to grow. She wants the rewards of hard work, but not the struggle that comes with it. She dreams of success, but refuses to embrace the discipline necessary to achieve it. She desires happiness, but avoids the uncomfortable truths that lead to real fulfillment. In the end, her avoidance of struggle only leads to more suffering, because the pain of staying the same is far worse than the pain of growth. She does not realize that every choice she makes is shaping her future. The small decisions she makes daily, whether to read a book or waste time on social media, whether to invest in herself or chase distractions, whether to develop discipline or indulge in laziness, are the very things determining the kind of life she will have. And if she continues choosing comfort over challenge, instant gratification over long-term success, she will find herself living a life of disappointment, wondering why she never became the woman she was meant to be. A foolish woman lives her life seeking validation instead of self-respect. She is constantly looking for approval from others, shaping her identity based on what people think of her rather than who she truly is. She is never at peace because her worth is tied to external opinions. And when those opinions change, so does her confidence. She relies on compliments to feel beautiful, attention to feel valuable, and relationships to feel complete. Without these things, she feels empty, lost, and insecure. Instead of building a strong sense of self, she spends her time chasing validation that disappears the moment people stop giving it to her. She becomes addicted to the approval of others, willing to do whatever it takes to be liked. She changes her personality to fit in with different groups, saying what people want to hear instead of speaking her truth. She agrees with opinions she doesn't believe in just to avoid criticism. She wears masks, never allowing her true self to be seen because she fears rejection. The idea of standing alone terrifies her, so she compromises her values, her dignity, and even her happiness just to belong. In trying to please everyone, she loses herself completely. Her need for validation is evident in the way she presents herself. She spends hours perfecting her appearance, believing that her worth is determined by how attractive she is. She takes endless pictures, carefully curating her social media to create the illusion of a perfect life. She lives for likes, comments, and shares, mistaking online attention for real admiration. Every post, every selfie, every outfit is carefully chosen to gain approval from strangers. When the likes slow down, she feels invisible, as if she no longer matters. Instead of realizing that her value is internal, she continues to chase a shallow form of recognition that will never truly satisfy her. She enters relationships for the wrong reasons, mistaking attention for love. She is drawn to men who flatter her, who say all the right things but have no real substance. She ignores red flags because she would rather be with anyone, than be alone. She lowers her standards, tolerating disrespect and mistreatment just to feel wanted. When a man pulls away, she panics, thinking she is the problem, wondering what she did wrong. She cannot handle being ignored because it threatens the fragile sense of worth she has built on external approval. She does not realize that a woman who respects herself does not beg for attention. She commands respect. Her friendships are often based on superficial connections. She surrounds herself with people who validate her insecurities instead of challenging her to grow. She chooses company that makes her feel comfortable rather than friends who push her toward greatness. She is afraid of being around strong, independent women because they remind her of what she is not. Instead of learning from them, she resents them, seeing their confidence as a threat rather than an inspiration. She engages in gossip, tearing others down to feel better about herself, never realizing that true self-worth does not come from comparison, but from self-respect. She fears judgment, so she avoids anything that might make her stand out in a way she cannot control. She hides her opinions, her passions, and her ambitions, afraid that if she expresses them, people will criticize her. She allows others to dictate her decisions, letting their expectations shape her future. She hesitates to take risks because failure would mean facing the disappointment of others. She does not understand that real confidence comes from within, not from the approval of those around her. A strong woman does not need permission to live her life. She creates her own path regardless of who approves. Her self-esteem is fragile, easily shattered by the opinions of others. A single negative comment can ruin her entire day, making her question everything about herself. If someone criticizes her, she takes it personally, as if her entire worth is being attacked. She allows other people to control her emotions, giving them power over how she feels about herself. She constantly seeks reassurance, needing people to tell her she is good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough. She does not realize that the only validation that truly matters is the one she gives herself. She measures her success by how others perceive her rather than by her own standards. She is not focused on becoming the best version of herself. She is focused on appearing successful, even if she is not truly happy. She makes decisions based on what will impress others rather than what will bring her fulfillment. She buys things she cannot afford to maintain an image. She stays in situations she hates because leaving would mean admitting she made the wrong choice. She fears looking like a failure more than actually failing. Instead of embracing growth, she remains stuck, constantly performing for an audience that does not care. She ignores her own voice, silencing her intuition in favor of what others think is best for her. She does not trust herself, always looking for guidance outside of herself rather than developing her own wisdom. She lets other people define her worth, tell her what she should do, and decide how she should live. She does not realize that a woman who respects herself listens to her own instincts and follows her own path. She does not beg for approval because she knows her value is not up for debate. She does not change herself to fit into spaces that do not appreciate her. She creates her own space, knowing that those who truly value her will accept her as she is. A foolish woman allows her emotions to control her decisions, leading her into unnecessary chaos, regret, and disappointment. Instead of using logic and wisdom to navigate life, she reacts impulsively, making choices based on how she feels in the moment rather than what is best for her future. She confuses temporary emotions with permanent truths, allowing fleeting feelings to dictate her actions. She does not pause to consider the consequences. She simply reacts, often making situations worse than they need to be. When she is angry, she lashes out without thinking, saying things she cannot take back, burning bridges she might need later. She allows her emotions to push her into conflicts that could have been avoided with a moment of patience. She creates drama where none was necessary, exhausting herself and those around her. Instead of responding with wisdom and composure, she lets her emotions explode like a wildfire, leaving destruction in their wake. She does not realize that true strength is found in self-control, not in reckless emotional outbursts. When she is sad, she isolates herself or seeks comfort in all the wrong places. She may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, trying to numb her pain rather than confronting it. She seeks validation from people who do not truly care about her, hoping that external attention will fill the emptiness she feels inside. She may chase toxic relationships, believing that any form of companionship is better than being alone with her thoughts. She does not realize that healing comes from within, not from distractions that only provide temporary relief. When she is insecure, she allows her doubts to make decisions for her. She second guesses herself, talking herself out of opportunities because she is afraid of failure. She does not take risks because her emotions tell her she is not good enough. Instead of trusting her abilities, she allows fear to dictate her choices, keeping her stuck in the same place. She watches others succeed and convinces herself that they are simply lucky, never acknowledging that they had to push past their own fears to get where they are. She does not understand that emotions are unreliable guides when it comes to decision making. She falls in love too fast, confusing infatuation with deep connection. She believes that chemistry alone is enough to sustain a relationship, ignoring the importance of compatibility, values, and long-term vision. When a man shows her attention, she assumes he is the right one, without taking the time to truly understand his character. She ignores red flags because her emotions tell her he is different, that this time will be better. She does not step back to analyze the situation rationally. She simply dives in, hoping for the best. When the relationship falls apart, she is devastated, blaming the man instead of recognizing her own lack of discernment. She holds on to grudges, allowing resentment to consume her. If someone wrongs her, she refuses to let go, replaying the situation in her mind over and over again. She lets anger dictate her interactions, pushing people away rather than resolving conflicts with maturity. She sabotages relationships, convinced that revenge or emotional withdrawal will somehow make her feel better. She does not realize that forgiveness is not for the other person, it is for her own peace of mind. Carrying emotional baggage only weighs her down, keeping her stuck in the past instead of moving forward. She struggles with jealousy, allowing it to poison her thoughts and actions. When she sees another woman succeeding, she does not feel inspired, she feels threatened. Instead of learning from those who have achieved what she desires, she resents them, finding faults in their success to justify her own insecurities. She allows her emotions to convince her that she is being left behind, rather than using that energy to push herself forward. She does not understand that comparison is a trap and that her journey is unique. The success of another woman does not diminish her own potential, but she cannot see that through the lens of her emotions. She overreacts to minor setbacks, treating every inconvenience as a catastrophe. A bad day convinces her that her entire life is falling apart. A single rejection makes her feel unworthy. A disagreement with a friend leads her to question the entire relationship. She does not have the emotional stability to handle life's ups and downs with grace. Instead, she allows her emotions to magnify problems that could have been easily solved with a clear mind. She becomes her own worst enemy, making her struggles harder than they need to be. She does not take responsibility for her emotions, expecting others to manage them for her. If she is unhappy, she blames those around her instead of looking within. If she is frustrated, she lashes out instead of addressing the root cause of her emotions. She expects the world to cater to her feelings rather than developing the emotional intelligence to handle them herself. She burdens others with her mood swings, creating instability in her relationships. She does not realize that emotional maturity is a skill that must be developed, not something that magically appears. She reacts to criticism with defensiveness instead of reflection. If someone offers her constructive feedback, she takes it as a personal attack rather than an opportunity to grow. Her emotions convince her that admitting fault is a sign of weakness, so she refuses to acknowledge when she is wrong. She would rather stay in denial than face the discomfort of self-improvement. She does not understand that the ability to accept feedback with grace is a sign of true confidence, not weakness. Instead, she surrounds herself with people who only tell her what she wants to hear, keeping her in a cycle of stagnation. She lives her life on an emotional roller coaster, controlled by whatever feeling is strongest in the moment. She does not take the time to step back, breathe, and think logically before making decisions. She allows her emotions to cloud her judgment, leading her into unnecessary struggles. She does not understand that emotions are meant to be felt, but not always acted upon. Instead of mastering her emotions, she lets them master her, creating a life filled with unnecessary pain, drama, and regret. A foolish woman fails to invest in her personal growth and development, choosing comfort over progress. distraction over discipline, and entertainment over education. She moves through life without a clear vision, allowing the days, weeks, and years to slip by without making any real effort to better herself. She does not prioritize learning new skills, expanding her knowledge, or strengthening her mind. Instead, she remains stagnant, caught in a cycle of mediocrity, never pushing herself to become more than she currently is. She may talk about her dreams, but she takes no real action to achieve them. She convinces herself that she has time, that she will start someday, but that day never comes because she lacks the discipline to commit to her own growth. She wastes hours on meaningless distractions, scrolling through social media, consuming content that does nothing to elevate her mind or improve her life. She becomes obsessed with gossip, celebrity drama, and reality TV, feeding her mind with trivial nonsense, while neglecting the knowledge that could actually transform her. She knows the latest trends, the lives of influencers, and the scandals of people she has never met. Yet she has no idea how to manage her finances, develop her talents, or cultivate a mindset for success. She chooses to entertain herself rather than educate herself, unaware that every wasted hour is an hour stolen from her own potential. She avoids books, preferring to be entertained rather than enlightened. The idea of reading, learning, or studying feels like work, so she chooses passive consumption instead. She does not seek out wisdom, mentors, or guidance that could elevate her understanding of life. She assumes that once she finishes school, her learning is complete, not realizing that personal growth is a lifelong journey. She does not challenge her own beliefs or seek out new perspectives, remaining trapped in a limited mindset that keeps her from evolving. She sees people around her advancing, succeeding, and achieving their goals, yet she tells herself that success is about luck rather than effort. She refuses to acknowledge that the difference between those who grow and those who remain the same is a commitment to self-improvement. She makes excuses for why she cannot grow, convincing herself that she does not have enough time, money, or opportunities. She does not realize that the most successful people in the world had the same 24 hours in a day, the same challenges and the same obstacles, yet they found a way to push through. She waits for the perfect moment, the right circumstances, or external motivation to get started, but none of these things ever come. She remains stuck in the same patterns, wondering why her life is not changing while refusing to change herself. She does not invest in courses, workshops, or training that could advance her skills. She is willing to spend money on clothes, makeup, and vacations, but she sees no value in spending money on her mind. She does not understand that her greatest asset is not her appearance, her possessions, or even her relationships. It is her ability to grow, learn, and adapt. She surrounds herself with people who do not challenge her to improve. She chooses friends who are comfortable with mediocrity, who reinforce her bad habits, and who never push her toward excellence. She wastes time in environments that do not contribute to her success, engaging in conversations that drain her rather than inspire her. She does not seek out mentors or role models, instead choosing to remain in the company of those who make her feel comfortable, rather than those who would push her toward greatness. She feels intimidated by ambitious, intelligent women, mistaking their confidence for arrogance instead of seeing them as a source of inspiration. She does not understand that who she surrounds herself with will either elevate or destroy her, and by staying in circles that do not encourage growth, she guarantees her own stagnation. She allows fear to hold her back from taking risks, trying new things, and stepping out of her comfort zone. She does not challenge herself to grow beyond what she already knows, staying within the safety of familiarity. She tells herself that she is not smart enough, talented enough, or experienced enough to succeed, so she does not even try. She does not understand that growth only happens through discomfort, through failure, and through pushing past limits. She sees confident, successful women and assumes they were born that way, failing to realize that confidence is built through experience effort, and resilience. Instead of pushing through fear, she allows it to control her, keeping her small and powerless. She does not set goals for herself, drifting through life without a sense of direction or purpose. She does not take the time to reflect on where she wants to be in 5, 10, or 20 years. She lets life happen to her rather than actively shaping her own future. When she does set goals, she does not follow through, losing motivation as soon as the excitement fades. She does not practice discipline, consistency, or perseverance, 3 essential qualities for success. She underestimates the power of daily habits, not realizing that success is built in the small, consistent actions taken every day. She waits for motivation, not realizing that motivation is fleeting, but discipline is what creates real change. She does not take care of her mental and emotional well-being. She does not invest in self-reflection, meditation, or practices that would strengthen her mindset. She allows negative thoughts to dominate her mind, never questioning the beliefs that are holding her back. She carries unresolved trauma, refusing to seek help or develop the emotional intelligence necessary to overcome past pain. She does not recognize that personal growth is not just about learning new skills. It is also about healing, maturing, and evolving into a stronger version of herself. She remains emotionally reactive, sensitive to criticism, and unwilling to confront the hard truths about herself. She relies on luck, fate, or external circumstances to change her life instead of taking full responsibility for her own growth. She does not understand that her future is in her hands, that her success is a reflection of the work she puts in. She waits for someone to rescue her, to give her an opportunity, to open a door for her, not realizing that successful people do not wait. They create their own opportunities. She allows years to pass without making any real progress, stuck in the same patterns, the same excuses, and the same unfulfilled potential. She does not realize that every day wasted is a day she will never get back, and by failing to invest in herself, she is choosing a life of mediocrity over a life of greatness. A foolish woman depends on others for her happiness, self-worth, and sense of purpose, constantly seeking external validation instead of developing internal confidence. She believes that her value is determined by how others see her rather than how she sees herself. She looks to relationships, friendships, social media approval, and societal expectations to tell her who she is rather than defining herself on her own terms. She craves attention, needing constant reassurance that she is loved, wanted, and important. She cannot be at peace with herself unless someone else affirms her. Without validation from others, she feels invisible, unworthy, and lost, unable to find stability within herself. She changes herself to fit the expectations of others, molding her personality, opinions, and even her dreams to gain acceptance. She does not stand firm in her beliefs, values, or identity because she is too afraid of rejection. She wants to be liked more than she wants to be true to herself. If someone disapproves of her, she takes it personally, allowing their opinions to dictate how she sees herself. She does not realize that true confidence comes from within, not from the approval of others. She does not understand that people's opinions are fleeting, constantly changing, and ultimately irrelevant to her personal growth and happiness. She places her self-worth in relationships, believing that she is only valuable if she has a man who wants her. She chases love, often settling for less than she deserves just to avoid being alone. She tolerates disrespect, mistreatment, and even betrayal because she is afraid of losing the validation that comes with being in a relationship. She sacrifices her own happiness to keep someone else in her life, convincing herself that their presence defines her worth. She ignores the red flags, makes excuses for bad behavior, and lowers her standards to maintain the illusion of love. She does not understand that a relationship should be an addition to her life, not the foundation of her identity. She cannot be alone with herself, constantly seeking distractions, social interactions, or digital validation to avoid confronting her own thoughts. She fills her days with noise, text messages, calls, likes, and comments, because silence forces her to face the emptiness inside. She does not cultivate a strong relationship with herself, instead relying on external sources to make her feel whole. She does not engage in self-reflection, personal growth, or independent thinking because she has become dependent on the world to tell her who she should be. She does not realize that the most powerful women are those who are secure in their own presence, who do not need anyone else to complete them, and who find fulfillment in their own journey. She compares herself to others, allowing jealousy and insecurity to consume her. She measures her worth based on how she stacks up against other women rather than focusing on her own growth. If another woman is more successful, more attractive, or more confident, she feels threatened instead of inspired. She does not see other women as potential allies or sources of motivation. She sees them as competition. She allows comparison to rob her of her peace, constantly chasing an impossible standard that leaves her feeling inadequate. She does not understand that everyone's journey is different, that success is not a limited resource, and that her only competition should be the person she was yesterday. She seeks attention in superficial ways, believing that her appearance is the most important thing about her. She invests more time in looking good than in developing her mind skills or character. She chases validation through social media, posting pictures for likes, comments, and external praise, as if digital approval somehow equates to real self-worth. She does not see that true confidence is built through accomplishment, discipline, and personal growth, not through temporary admiration from strangers. She becomes addicted to the cycle of validation, needing constant affirmation to feel good about herself. She does not realize that if her confidence is built on external factors, it will crumble the moment that validation disappears. She allows criticism to break her instead of using it to grow. If someone points out an area where she needs improvement, she becomes defensive, seeing it as an attack rather than an opportunity. She cannot handle being wrong, admitting mistakes, or facing hard truths about herself because she is too focused on maintaining the illusion of perfection. She does not separate constructive criticism from personal rejection, which prevents her from learning, evolving, and becoming stronger. She would rather hear comforting lies than face uncomfortable truths, even if those truths could lead her to a better life. She does not realize that the most successful women welcome feedback, knowing that growth comes from the willingness to improve. She relies on relationships, friendships, and social status to give her a sense of purpose, rather than building a life of meaning on her own terms. She does not pursue her own passions, goals, or ambitions because she is too focused on fitting into someone else's expectations. She lets others define her path, telling her what she should do, who she should be, and how she should live. She does not take control of her own destiny, instead allowing life to happen to her instead of actively shaping it. She does not take risks, challenge herself, or step outside of her comfort zone because she is too afraid of failing in front of others. She does not realize that true fulfillment comes from within, from living authentically and unapologetically, not from external validation. She makes emotional decisions based on her desire for approval, often compromising her values in the process. She does things not because she truly wants to, but because she is afraid of disappointing others. She says yes when she should say no, prioritizing others' expectations over her own well-being. She allows people to manipulate her, guilt trip her, and control her decisions because she cannot handle the discomfort of disapproval. She does not understand that true strength comes from standing firm in her beliefs, even when it is unpopular. She does not realize that the most powerful women are those who live according to their own principles, not those who constantly seek validation from the world. She remains in toxic friendships and relationships, unwilling to walk away from people who drain her energy and lower her self-esteem. She tolerates negativity, gossip, and drama because she is afraid of being alone. She lets others define her self-worth, forgetting that the company she keeps directly impacts her mindset and emotional well-being. She surrounds herself with people who do not inspire, challenge, or uplift her, remaining in circles that reinforce her own insecurities. She does not realize that sometimes walking away from the wrong people is the first step toward finding real confidence, peace, and self-respect. She lacks emotional control, allowing her feelings to dictate her decisions, reactions, and overall outlook on life. She is quick to anger, easily offended, and overly reactive to the smallest inconveniences. She does not pause to reflect before responding, but instead allows her emotions to take complete control, often leading her to say or do things she later regrets. When faced with challenges, criticism, or rejection, she does not handle them with grace or wisdom, but instead lashes out, plays the victim, or seeks revenge. She does not recognize the power of mastering her emotions and instead becomes a slave to them, allowing them to control her instead of using them as tools for personal growth. She is impulsive, making choices based on how she feels in the moment rather than thinking about the long-term consequences. She speaks before she thinks, acts without considering the repercussions, and lets temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. She burns bridges out of anger, sabotages relationships out of insecurity, and walks away from opportunities because of fear. She does not take the time to step back, process her emotions, and respond with clarity and wisdom. Instead, she reacts instantly, letting her feelings lead her down destructive paths. She does not understand that emotional intelligence is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop, and without it, she remains trapped in a cycle of poor decisions, unnecessary conflict, and self-inflicted suffering. She is overly sensitive to criticism, unable to separate constructive feedback from personal attacks. If someone points out an area where she could improve, she takes it as an insult rather than an opportunity to grow. She is defensive, always ready to argue, justify, or shift blame rather than accept responsibility for her own actions. She is unwilling to listen, unwilling to reflect, and unwilling to admit when she is wrong. She would rather protect her ego than develop her character. Because of this, she remains stagnant, never growing, never improving, and never reaching her full potential. She does not realize that true strength is found in humility. The ability to acknowledge weaknesses, learn from mistakes, and make necessary changes. She allows her past to control her emotions, holding on to old pain, grudges, and disappointments as if they define her. She relives negative experiences over and over, allowing them to dictate how she sees herself and the world around her. She carries emotional baggage into every new relationship, expecting others to pay for the mistakes of those who hurt her in the past. She assumes the worst in people, believing that history will always repeat itself. She is bitter, resentful, and unable to move forward because she refuses to let go of the past. She does not realize that emotional healing is a choice, that freedom comes from releasing the pain instead of holding on to it, and that real strength is found in learning from the past without letting it define the future. She is ruled by fear, letting her insecurities keep her from taking risks, stepping outside of her comfort zone, or pursuing her dreams. She is afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of judgment, and afraid of judgment, and afraid of judgment, and afraid of being alone. Instead of pushing past these fears, she allows them to dictate her actions. She plays it safe, choosing comfort over growth and mediocrity over excellence. She convinces herself that she is not capable, not worthy, or not ready, even when she has the potential to achieve greatness. She does not understand that fear is an illusion, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it, and that the most successful people in life are those who refuse to let fear control them. She allows external circumstances to dictate her mood, happiness, and overall well-being. If something goes wrong, she falls apart. If someone treats her poorly, she takes it personally. If life presents challenges, she feels defeated. She is like a leaf in the wind, completely at the mercy of everything happening around her, rather than standing firm in her own inner strength. She lets bad days turn into bad weeks, bad months, and even bad years because she does not know how to separate temporary problems from permanent identity. She does not realize that emotional resilience is the key to lasting happiness, that life will always bring challenges, but it is her response to those challenges that determines her success and fulfillment. She allows negativity to consume her, surrounding herself with toxic people, indulging in gossip, and focusing on problems rather than solutions. She complains more than she takes action, blames others for her circumstances, and refuses to take responsibility for her own happiness. She sees herself as a victim rather than a creator of her own life. She is easily influenced by the negativity of others, allowing their toxic energy to shape her mindset and keep her stuck in cycles of frustration, bitterness, and self-doubt. She does not realize that she has the power to change her environment, to walk away from negativity, and to choose a mindset of abundance, gratitude, and personal responsibility. She is driven by temporary emotions rather than long-term wisdom, making decisions based on how she feels in the moment instead of thinking logically about what is best for her future. She reacts impulsively, sabotages relationships with unnecessary drama, and allows fleeting emotions to dictate major life choices. She believes that her feelings are always valid, even when they are leading her down the wrong path. She does not understand that emotions are temporary, but the consequences of emotional decisions can last a lifetime. She does not take the time to pause, reflect, and make choices from a place of wisdom and self-control. She lacks the ability to self-soothe, always looking for external validation, distractions, or unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with emotional distress. Instead of processing her emotions in a healthy way, she seeks instant gratification through attention, food, shopping, social media, relationships. She does not sit with her emotions, understand them, and learn from them. Instead, she numbs them, avoids them, or allows them to control her actions. She does not develop emotional strength because she has never taken the time to truly face her emotions and build resilience. She allows minor inconveniences to ruin her day, letting small setbacks turn into overwhelming stress. If something doesn't go her way, she reacts as if the world is against her. She lacks perspective, failing to see the bigger picture. She lets temporary discomfort dictate her entire mood, rather than recognizing that most problems are insignificant in the grand scheme of life. She does not cultivate gratitude, patience, or emotional discipline, which makes her constantly feel as if she is at war with the world. She is controlled by her emotions rather than using them as tools for growth, happiness, and success. She lets temporary feelings define her long-term reality, failing to realize that emotional mastery is one of the most powerful skills anyone can develop. She does not take charge of her emotional well-being, instead allowing life, people, and circumstances to dictate her inner world. She does not recognize that true freedom comes from emotional strength, the ability to feel deeply but not be controlled by feelings, to experience challenges but not be defeated by them, and to navigate life with wisdom rather than reaction.